Keeping in line with the vision of Digital India, a roundtable conference was held recently in New Delhi to discuss and deliberate on the topic of broadband as a utility, organized by CyberMedia Insights.
CyberMedia and its brands, Voice and Data, DataQuest, PCQuest, have always played a very important role in terms of defining what sort of policy should be there for any kind of a new idea. We were the first people who talked about software exports in the 80s. We talked about bandwidth in the 90s. We talked about internet during that time and so on. And therefore we said that can we give it a structure? And what we did was that we said let's create this program, CyberMedia Insights, where we have closed door roundtables on issues which are of national importance.
The conference was attended by policymakers as well as top industry leaders. Few of the panelists spoke exclusively on the topic. We have with us Dr. Anand Agarwal, CEO of Sterlite Technologies, speaking to ET Now. Dr. Agarwal, thank you so much for taking out the time.
Sure.
My first question to you really is that, data now is really pivotal to progress and also, of course, to citizens' right to access. Data is really the backbone. What is the role of infrastructure that you think, in given the fact that how intrinsic is data to our lives now?
It's data, you need to almost think of it as an essential service. So just like we have, for instance, electricity, we have gas, we have roadways, each of these services ride on an infrastructure. So if you see voice as a service, the infrastructure for that is spectrum. So for data as a service, which becomes a universal right for all the citizens, there needs to be a broadband denominated infrastructure for that.
And if one were to really look at in terms of best practices, what do you think are the best practices for a long-term broadband asset?
See, globally, most of the governments are starting to realize that broadband needs to be seen as a utility. So a long-term practice, what most of the governments have started doing is planning for broadband much in the same way they plan for anything else. For instance, countries like Singapore have broadband infrastructure created by the government, and then it is leased out to anybody who wants to put services on it. So you have a planned infrastructure, and you have the best quality of services to the consumers. And this model works best globally.
And if we were to talk about Sterlite Technologies, how prepared is Sterlite to build data networks?
We have clearly taken our focus that we are going to be designing, installing and managing data networks. All the infrastructure that needs to get created, this will be shared infrastructure, this will be infrastructure on which multiple services and multiple service providers would be riding. We have going to take a role which will design, install and manage these networks. We are pretty well prepared. We are doing several of such projects which are, so we are creating the basic data infrastructure for defense in Jammu and Kashmir. We are creating infrastructure, we are creating services for 3 of the smart cities in Jaipur and Gandhinagar as well as Ahmedabad.
And I know a large part of, this segment of the business is private enterprise. Government has very limited role to really play. But any policy decisions that you think the government needs to look at to really accelerate the entire pace of broadband?
First and foremost, government needs to now decide that when they say broadband is a utility, there needs to be a broadband policy. There needs to be a broadband planning, infrastructure planning, much in the same way that the government has a power, rail or highway planning. In the annual budget, you have plans of outlays for highways, you have outlays for power, you have outlays for railways, you have outlays for roadways, but you have no outlays for broadband. In the opposite, you look at what can telecom sector earn from selling the spectrum.
Right.
It needs to be now thought of differently. You need to, if broadband is a GDP multiplier, which is one of the clear goals of Digital India, then it needs to be spent and creating a policy framework for how broadband infrastructure will get created, who's going to pay for it, and how will it get monetized. This entire framework needs to be now done by the government.
The government is already doing BBNL, which is, the government entity, and they are really scaling up the entire exercise of ensuring optic fiber reaches at the very earliest, the NOFN model, which has now been rechristened as well. How bullish are you on that entire network, and how soon do you think it could actually be as transformational as the government thinks it will be?
BBNL is a great initiative. It covers one leg of the overall population, the rural leg, going from district to blocks and blocks to panchayat. So I'm pretty excited with what that will unravel, that entire opportunity, that entire infrastructure. There are still some sticking points in terms of the roles to be defined in the entire framework. But clearly what BBNL is intending and planning to do for the rural part of the country, the same needs to be done for the urban part of the country.
Now let's just talk about Sterlite. If you were to talk specifically of Sterlite Technologies, what lies ahead for the company in terms of the top 2 or top 3 initiatives that you think would be transformational for the company?
We are very, very bullish about the entire broadband initiative and the fact that India needs to have people accessing broadbands. Today, less than 5% of the country has access to broadband. There may be many people who have access to narrow band, less than 1 Mbps connectivity. But broadband today in India is where voice was more than 15 years ago. So that opportunity, we are, for us, what we are doing is through our products, where we are scaling up the type of products, the research activity that we have, the patent activity that we have, all that combined gives us a great product offering. That we combine with our designing of the right networks. So we have something called smarter networks in the country. What's a pity today in India is the fact that any network which is laid in the country today has a lifetime of just about 8 to 9 years. Globally, the same network has a lifetime of about 25 to 30 years. So, and that's why we are having these discussions simultaneously. On one side, we say we need to transmit broadband. On the other side, we are having discussions on call drops. No other country has this issue. And the culprit is the fact that we don't have robust infrastructure on which this is riding. So Sterlite is focused towards providing that degree of robustness through the product, through the system integration and the software offerings.
Make in India, a large part of Make in India is actually electronic manufacturing. And 2.5 years down the line of what Make in India was pitched as by the government, it hasn't really taken off the way the government wanted it to. It's not yet yielding jobs or big ticket investments. In your assessment, as far as electronic manufacturing is concerned, how soon do you think Make in India could actually yield very substantial results?
Make in India electronics, I think that is struggling because of the lack of the overall ecosystem. That ecosystem, somebody has to take a first step in on the electronic side. And I think the mobile manufacturing which has started is a good first step. And the right kind of ancillaries will start coming
up around it.
Yeah, and so that's a good initiative, and hopefully it should take off towards that electronics manufacturing.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank
you.
We have with us Mr. Arvind Gupta. He is a technology evangelist and national head of IT cell of the BJP. Mr. Gupta, thank you so much for speaking to us. My first question to you is that Digital India, of course, is expected to be an extremely transformational initiative by the government. How soon do you expect it to actually lead the kind of transformation that we're hoping in citizens' lives?
Digital India program, to me, is kick-started very well. I think the whole theme today of broadband as a utility, which signifies that broadband as an essential service in a way, without using that as a right, close to that is the theme. I mean, I think the Prime Minister and the whole leadership clearly believes that broadband is a game changer, digital is a game changer, digital is empowering citizens and putting power at the hands of everybody equally, information at the hands of everybody equally.
Right. There are several legs to the entire Digital India piece. Let's take them one by one. First and foremost, of course, is the infrastructure that needs to be in place. NOFN is an ambitious project that has been in the pipeline, if my memory serves me right, since 2006. Of course, it has gathered pace, but do you think it will actually be operational in the next 1 year to actually lead the kind of changes that we're talking about?
So, NOFN or whatever its various avatars have been really, kicked off about 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And when we inherited the program, it was in a state that it was not, we couldn't talk too much about it. The numbers were not showing up. It is something that does take time for a simple reason that it requires a lot of physical laying of infrastructure. The challenge is there, and I think we will live up to the challenge. I mean, the life is not going to be so easy if it's without challenges. So it's a challenge. We have a hard deadline, and I think with the renewed focus on Digital India, I think this whole making sure the fiber reaches the Gram Panchayat, empowers the citizens of rural India, and they really become smart rural, is going to happen in the next 1 year, 1.5 years.
I think the biggest challenge that awaits the government is also the role of states. States need to be on board for Digital India to really be truly successful. Can we expect states to come on board so easily?
I think every state today is actually in a very healthy competition to make sure that they are the first ones to achieve 100% digital connectivity. So I think not only they are in a competition, a healthy competition to make sure that they have the infrastructure built up in their state,
right,
but they're attracting an industry which is around the digital industry, which is mobile manufacturing, software parks, so startups. Every state is rolling out its startup policy. So it's a very comprehensive view that we have within Digital India. It's a very comprehensive vision. It's not a silos-based approach.
Right.
This is one program, I believe, where the states are the most on board, I guess.
Fair enough. Now let's talk about the content piece, because at the end of the day, there has to be an apps ecosystem. There have to be software and tools in local languages, in regional dialects to actually be truly meaningful. Where are we on that content curve, so to say?
What is that we are doing to act as an enabler to the ecosystem, the content ecosystem? For that, we need, one thing you mentioned is local languages. So local languages keyboards. We need literacy.
Right.
And we need people to be, able to do many things without having alphabetic literacy, but being digitally literate, to be cyber secure, to have the basic cyber hygiene. We believe that unless content is in local Indian languages, it will not get consumed.
Right.
86% of India does not speak English.
Right.
The second part is the actual content, where e-services are coming into play.
Right.
So the DigiLocker, the national scholarship portals, integrating of the DigiLocker with the driving licenses, all the e-services, citizen services that are being rolled out. But 90% of content is going to come from entrepreneurs.
Right. In fact, I was coming to that this is not going to be successful till private enterprise is on board. From ISPs to content, you need the entire gamut of private enterprise. How bullish are you, and how optimistic are you that private enterprise will be able to be the real game changer here?
I think the challenge of digital distribution will be, and I'm recognizing that that's what the startups community is still figuring out, how do you monetize them better? But content is out there. There is education content, there is, every single content player, whether it's Indian or overseas, wants to localize his content and put it in India. And private enterprises are producing content, content in the areas of entertainment. Cricket and sports, it's all mobile. You can now see a lot of TV channels, or cricket, if you take for an example, which is a national pastime, it's all on mobile now, and mobile digital.
My final question to you is, as far as the startup ecosystem and also initiatives like smart cities, they get a huge push due to Digital India. Absolutely. So Digital India is really the backbone to get these projects going. Your views of that?
See, they're very interesting that you mentioned that, because smart cities, even though it's not about technology, but as you said, it's about digital connectivity. It's giving, it's about making sure that citizens are getting the right view across to the governments. They're able to voice that in real time, and make those changes. On the other side, when you talk about Startup India, what Digital India has done is created a market for it. From 200 odd million users about 2 years ago, we have now doubled the size in almost 2 years.
Right.
The Digital India program is about creating the infrastructure, but for startups, it's about creating a huge market. We have 360 million people on the internet today in India. That's perhaps the second biggest market, digital market in the world.
Right. We leave it there. Thank you so much for taking
Thank you.
out the time.
Welcome.
We have with us Mr. Jayendran Venugopal, founder and CEO of eClinic 247, speaking to ET Now. Thank you so much for taking out the time. My first question to you is, what was the idea, the vision really behind starting this venture?
We realized that one of the core ways in which we can transform the healthcare paradigm in the country is to bring the leverage of technology to play. So our core vision is to improve access to healthcare, affordability of healthcare for every citizen in the country, and by leveraging technology, improve the quality of healthcare in the country overall. So that is our overall vision.
Affordable healthcare really is a huge gap that exists right now in India. But in terms of the kind of business model that you have, help us understand that, and also, details of how really does it work.
We have a mobile-based platform, an Android app, and from the web app as well. We actually connect doctors and patients real time for on-demand consultations. So let's say that in the middle of the night you have a crying child, and then you feel that, hey, I really need to talk to a pediatrician now because I want to get some advice on how to deal with this, right? So you could just open up the app, and within 5 to 10 minutes you will be on a video call with a doctor who will be looking at your child, hearing about the symptoms and giving you advice, either triaging the case, giving you mitigation, or helping you understand what you need to do at that time. So that is the concept behind the product. So in terms of the business model, we work with several very progressive companies who are looking to go beyond the standard group mediclaim and insurance which every corporate provides, to look at how else can they add value to the lives of their employees. And one of the clear ways in which they can do that is by offering this kind of a value-added service where their employees and their dependents will have on the touch of a button access to doctors with 24/7 guaranteed access.
Right. And let's talk in detail about how you leverage technology. Of course, that's really the backbone of your entire initiative venture. How do you leverage technology? Okay.
So at the fundamental level, we have created a very highly scalable technology base by leveraging cutting-edge cloud solutions to put together a system which is highly secure, which can store the health records for any citizen in the country along with their dependents, so they can manage their entire health base in a digitized form. And using mobility technology now, of course, like everybody has access to Android phone, right? So the price points of Android phones have dropped, and we are able to use that penetration that is pretty massive to be able to connect a large base of customers for on-demand healthcare. So the mobility solution combined with cloud solutions forms the fundamental core base of the technology platform.
How scalable is this model?
So it is highly scalable, both from a technology platform perspective. I mean, of course, the scalability in the technology side is actually almost a solved problem, right? Like with cloud solutions, that is something that is taken for granted these days. Both on the scalability of the business model as well as availability of both demand and supply, in the sense that doctors who are willing to come online, expand their practice beyond their physical clinics, and then look at serving a pan-India population, right? There is a lot of willingness. Like even without doing any substantial marketing, we have seen that doctors discover our solutions, our services, and then they come and say, hey, I want to practice on your platform, like enroll me and start giving me patients, right? And of course, on the demand side, there is no question, right? So India has a long way to go to actually meet WHO standards on density of doctors per 1,000 capita, etc. We are still short of that. We are making rapid strides, but while we have a long way to get there, this kind of solution will help bridge the gap to a large extent.
And in terms of your future targets, I'm sure you have some numbers in mind or some milestones that you would want to achieve. Share some of that with us.
Okay, so I mean, clearly we have certain milestones. One of the first milestones we're looking at is to positively impact and touch 1 million lives in the country in terms of providing access to primary health care, which they would not have otherwise had. By partnering with social ventures, as well as we are also looking at partnering with the governments for public-private partnerships. We have recently done a proposal to the government of Karnataka, which has shown a lot of interest in something like this for the primary health center infrastructure in the state. So we are seeing a lot of interest, and we feel that it is a very, very achievable target in the not so distant future.
What has been the response that you've got from the government so far? Because, you know, at the end of the day, you need public-private partnerships to really scale this up. What is the kind of response you've got?
So it has been very promising, definitely. I think the Startup India movement is the Startup India, Stand Up India movement is one of the boons that have come in the way of startup infrastructure in the country. Government actually, through the Digital India initiative, through Digital Locker and various other initiatives they have launched, have shown that they are willing to look at technology-enabled solutions to take citizen-centric solutions to the next level. So I am pretty positive about the direction the governments are going, both at the central and state level, and several state governments have shown interest in digital clinics and integrating e-clinic solutions or telemedicine, telediagnostic solutions into the primary health infrastructure and so on. So,
right.
Yeah.
We wish you all the very best. Thank you so much for speaking to us.
Thanks for the opportunity.
The roundtable conference concluded on a positive note, with the industry leaders and policymakers unanimous on their views.
The topic, most of all, was of great relevance because in the Government of India, we believe, and the Digital India vision is that broadband should be a basic utility or basic infrastructure for every citizen. And that will lead to provision of services as well as empowerment of citizens.
It was an excellent roundtable, a very good, diverse group of people and folks who really knew the subject well. The government is extremely proactive and very keen to engage with the industry to work towards a broadband policy.
India is a larger country, they'll have more complex problems to solve. But I was very, very inspired by the support that the minister had given on the industry lead participation here today on how India can move forward, and also the commitment that they will move towards creating broadband as a utility.
India can't become great unless we have broadband infrastructure that's going to allow our citizens to enjoy the benefits of broadband. So I think what's going to happen is that from the infrastructure side, from the mobile operator side, what we are absolutely committed to doing is investing over 500,000 crore rupees so that this vision that the Honorable Prime Minister has of broadband connection for all is going to happen.
If we have broadband services available in all the households across the country, which means everybody can access education through videos, through live classes at their homes, then probably we can give them best education at their home, at their convenience.
We discussed that what is the role that the government has to play in terms of broadband as a utility, and it was brought out that while the government has a lot of role to play in terms of enabling the broadband services in the rural areas to make the services affordable and accessible to our rural population. On the other hand, in the urban and the semi-urban areas, it may become as a facilitator or an enabler so that the private telecom service providers can provide services to the urban population.